This is Lee Camp. Lee Camp used to be allegedly one of the good guys, and then he went over to RT and apparently had no problem with Vladimir Putin paying his rent for a decade. And then when RT shut down of their own volition, they were not shut down by the U.S. government. They closed down because apparently they had a reasonable fear that maybe a couple of their hosts wouldn't be all in on the Ukraine war, and that possibly Lee wouldn't be one of them, that he might, in spite of himself, have to address the conflict in a reasonable way because Russia attacked Ukraine. They didn't have to do it, and the short skirt argument has been made multiple times, and that he very well may have. But real quick, I'm not going to do this whole thing or whatever, but apparently the Democratic Socialists of America have voted to be sad servants of the DNC. So this goes to that whole like anti-voting push that Lee's been a huge part of over the years, because the idea is you can't, there are no good guys in the world, because unless you subscribe to the TYT mantra of, if we don't get everything, nobody gets anything, then it's all a lie and you're a hypocrite because you voted for somebody who gives you 80 to 90% of what you want, not 100%. And anyways, this is his, I guess, freak out about that.
With the Democratic Socialists of America. So,
by the way, technically speaking, there is no functioning form of democratic socialism. The closest thing to democratic socialism is non-governmental, and it deals with workplace co-ops, that the employees of a space have a say in what goes on in the monetary expression of the company. Once you get to a socialist level, there must be undemocratic means for the maintenance of that. Just say it.
Thank you, Omar. Omar says the comedy special sounds awesome. Looking forward to it. Glad you're going to be there. The Democratic Socialists of America, many of you know who they are. They sound very like leftist, right? They sound kind of radical. Democratic Socialist. It sounds like Bernie Sanders, but edgier.
Well, it's also better than, nationwide socialist, national socialist. That didn't sound right.
However, they seem to have a trend, a habit, I'll say, of saying some pretty good things. And then at the end of the day, they go, and now it's time to vote for the Democrats.
As opposed to?
Get on in, little fella, to the Joe Biden camp. Go hang out with Mr. Joe Biden.
Okay, first of all, no, they don't. And also, I would say for the record that Democratic is the first word, as in Democratic Party, is the first word in their title. Maybe you think they should be the Social Democrats, and therefore their socialism should take a front seat to their ideology, and therefore they have what? No one to vote for?
They stand around the DSA and they go, "We need healthcare for all."
Right? Did they agree on the tactical way of making that happen? Can they? What? How do you make that happen if you don't have the votes? Oh, you don't actually do it. I see. You just scream about it and let people continue to die and keep the status quo by just being a like what I would call a hot topic anarchist, standing around in your anarchy T-shirt that you bought at a store.
We need to decrease our prison industrial complex.
What does that mean?
We need to end these wars.
Like the Afghanistan war? I mean, it did end. I mean, it did. And Biden ended it. Trump didn't want to. Trump has even said that he, even beyond his date that he had set in the future, he was planning on keeping Bagram forever because it was within an hour of, no, that's not going to. Oh, because we're helping Ukraine, that means us getting into another war. So not getting involved in wars means letting anybody who's attacked. I see. So let the Rwandan genocide happen in the future is the position of the Democratic Socialist ideal, according to Lee Camp.
Now go vote for Biden. Woo! Yeah. Which is utter nonsense.
Why?
It's completely antithetical to all of the things you just said.
No, it isn't. That's like saying exercise and nutrition are antithetical to getting your stomach stapled and liposuction that you can't afford. Can you pay for complete liposuction and having your skin tightened surgically and I don't know, and getting put on a blood cleaning drip that some rich people could afford, like getting your blood changed out like Keith Richards and stuff. And that's the goal. But this asshole who wants you to go to the gym and eat right and make progress in that direction, then hopefully over time you can find out what works for you and what doesn't. And then if anybody else is in harm's way, you'll have the strength and wherewithal to help them.
So,
right, gibberish.
DSA just had a vote. They just had a big vote in their convention, 2023 convention. The DSA 2023 convention delegates resolved to remain a faction of the Democratic Party.
Also, we don't have factions. What they mean is caucus with the Democratic Party, which Bernie does as well as an independent. Who gives a shit?
That's the thing. If you had all these people together and they all say, we're Democratic Socialists.
All these people? You mean one conference room full of... This is smaller than the current Trump rallies.
America. You'd think, and we believe in all these things that I just listed and many more, you'd think they'd go, maybe we should do our own thing and stop promoting the guys that do exactly the opposite.
I would argue with exactly the opposite. Is the ACA the exact opposite of universal health care or, a single payer system? Or is it a step in that direction? If it's a step in that direction at all, then it cannot, by the virtue of its existence, be the exact opposite. The same thing is true of every environment, the environmental moves that Joe Biden has done, the infrastructure, removing lead pipes. Removing lead pipes alone, again, I will say, probably one of the greatest health advancements that is not because somebody comes up with the next penicillin, that have happened or will happen to the American people in 10 decades back and 10 decades forward.
Like exactly the
8, because removing unleaded gas perhaps is one.
The opposite.
No, not exactly the opposite. Explain how it's exactly the opposite.
Maybe if we believe in these things.
Isn't exactly the opposite staying in Afghanistan? Why would we have a peace talk happening between Saudi Arabia and Israel if it was the exact opposite? To, by the way, guarantee Palestinian territories.
On this list over here, we shouldn't tell everyone to support the guy over here who sets fire to all those things.
Is that what he did? He set fire to all those things. Now, this is, by the way, he sets fire to all those things in Russia, perhaps. Is that what, I mean, he did effectively, and this makes sense. Joe Biden did effectively, quote, set fire to Lee Camp's already smoldering career. So, yeah.
Just burns them to the ground.
I don't know. I get the burning analogy. I just haven't found you breaking down how.
Maybe not, but no, they're cool with it. At the Democratic Socialists of America, August 4th to 6th convention in Chicago, delegates gathered in person to restate the organization's half-century commitment to promoting the imperialist Democratic Party.
I see. So this article isn't necessarily friendly to the Democratic Party in the start. I'm sensing a bit of a bias. I don't want to judge.
By a vote of 704 to 184, the convention passed a resolution on its electoral work, which declares it is not advisable for us to form an independent political party with its own ballot line. It is not advisable for us to do our own thing.
Why?
The convention consistently rejected several amendments that would have held DSA elected officials to even the mildest political accountability, exposing that the DSA's claim to be left of the Democrats is merely a show. Delegates also rejected by a
Well, no, you can't. Just because you don't have the strength to take over something doesn't mean you can't coax to the left. The other thing too is that this is all based on the idea, and this is the poison. This is we see the stroke of the pen fallacy, but there's a very insidious thing going on here, which is the idea that everything you want, you have to fight for, and the fight is even amongst your allies. That you have to hold people's feet to the fire. That that old chestnut. Right? That's how it works. And it doesn't, especially if you're trying to create a situation, you're dealing with a situation where everybody agrees on the problem, but not everybody agrees on the solution. If you're in a magical situation where everybody agrees about the problem, everybody agrees on the solution, but there's one person standing in the way who just won't let it happen, that's it's not morally ambiguous. It doesn't take any work. Breaking news: Georgia grand jury is voting right now. Indictments coming. Very exciting. We'll talk about it when they come, and largely when Trump's fans react to it. But you see the distinction? Like, this is based on, and this is probably Lee's mentality as well. He's absolutely in line with the TYT methodology, the Jimmy Dore methodology, and arguably the Russell thing. Although Russell's a bit of a wuss, so I don't see him using the fight stuff. He's like, we're creating a system. Like, his whole language is about, we've got to destroy the system without saying destroy the system. It's weak, but I'll give him points for at least remaining relatively hippie-ish and nonviolent around it. That said, Lee is amongst the people that believes that the only time the Democratic Socialists of America are making any progress with the Democratic Party, or indeed the electorate as a whole, is if they're screaming at them and calling them baby killers, or fighting them and saying, you guys don't really care. Everything you've done to try and further this cause is actually antithetical to everything that you say you believe in. You're a bunch of hypocrites and fuck you. Meanwhile, leave Trump alone. That's been Lee's argument for quite some time.
62.
There you go. In the chat, Casey says Lee is great. I would argue Lee used to, and now Lee has seen the upside of that rusty trombone money.
40% margin, a proposed amendment to the electoral resolution, which would have added language that, quote, it is the DSA's expectation that socialists in elected office will vote and act in accordance with core principles of the socialist movement.
Which are what?
Did you follow that? They rejected. These are the Democratic Socialists, right? They claim to be so.
Right. But that just means you're an automatic holdout and you have given your vote. You won't move forward any socialist goals, I guess, unless the program itself is directly socialist. Again, that's why you're not going anywhere. That's why.
Socialists.
Also, does anybody think any of them are going to get elected if they signed on to a piece of legislation that said the opposite? I'm dead serious. Let's say one of these fuckers think they're going to be a mole for the socialists and get elected to office, and then when they get in there, man, they're going to push for all that shit, and they're going to hold their line. They're going to cross their arms and go, I'm not voting for this thing because it's not true. Whatever. I've drawn the line here. Why? Just because. I'm not going to tell you. It's because I'm socialist. You guys know it, but I'm not voting for this. If it could be used against them, if they're running for office almost anywhere in the fucking country, even AOC's district, and somebody went, oh, by the way, they signed a pledge saying that they will only vote for things that are in line with socialist values, period, end of story, they'll never get elected. They just won't. But Lee is expecting this. He wants the MAGA-ing of the socialist democratic system, the Democratic Socialists of America.
They claim to want things that would be social for all of us, such as healthcare for all and great infrastructure. And
you do realize, fuck, man. We just passed an infrastructure bill. God damn it.
public schools that are really awesome and well funded.
Right. That's why one party wants to expand the Department of Education and make sure that there's equal funding and that kids don't go to a school where the quality of the education is equal to the amount of tax dollars in the area, for example, and you have programs within it. That's why Democrats are for like Head Start and guaranteeing, after school programs and that kind of stuff, and nationwide funding to even that out when the local funding doesn't go that direction and to guarantee them. Whereas the Republicans want to get rid of the Department of Education and just let states, if they want to teach classes that God says women don't belong in office, they could do it. But which one's the lesser of two evils?
And you they just give you pencils for free and that kind of thing. They claim to be socialists, and I know that's not the deeper definition of socialist, but that's not really the point.
Yes, the definition of socialism is free pencils.
They claim to be socialist, but they rejected by 60 to 40% the amendment that DSA should expect. This is just expecting. They rejected the expectation. This doesn't even say we'll fucking storm their offices and drag them out by the fucking collar and throw them into the street. This says we'll even have the expectation that a socialist elected office would act like a socialist.
No, that they have to sign on to that.
They rejected that.
Because if they're running for that office and that's part of the charter, they can be held against them. So of course they're avoiding it, and they're doing it for electability
by 60%.
Well, obviously 60% of the Democratic Socialists of America are capitalist warmonger pigs. What's the hard part to understand? And the other 40% are ignorant losers who don't really want any of their stuff to actually happen.
It was just language that said we maybe should expect them to behave the way they told us they'd behave. No, we can't. We can't expect them to. We can't ask them to act like they told us they were going to act. We can't have that. I mean, how pathetic, how limp could you get in rejecting?
Well, if they get any, tougher or whatever, it gets into very awkward Stalinistic territory.
The proposed amendment, the DSA has resolved to support Democratic politicians, no matter how right-wing they are, and has explicitly stated its hostility to socialism. The rejected amendment would have required the DSA hold its members, quote, accountable.
Well, okay, so yeah, drag them out by their collar, metaphorically speaking. You just said it was the suggestion. Hold them accountable.
If they, quote, vote for measures which expand or strengthen the police. Vote for any restriction.
Okay, so if you vote to support or expand the police through, I don't know, education, training, the availability of non-lethal means, that if they vote for that stuff, even if they vote against the other stuff, if they vote for that stuff, then they'll, be stripped of their office?
Restrictions on the independent action of the working class.
What? Restrictions on the independent actions of the working class? What do you mean? Being pro-anti-union?
Vote for measures which expand or strengthen the police. Vote for any restrictions on the independent action of the working class.
Also, what does that mean? What's a restriction on the independent action of the working class? What is that? The ability to I mean, does that mean if they vote for unions?
Such as the right to strike. Vote for military.
Oh, I see. Such as the right to strike. Yeah, but what if we're talking about like cops? What if they take away the right of cops to strike? Boy, now you're in a knot.
Military budgets, the imperial war machine, or military aid to U.S. client states, such as the apartheid state of Israel.
I see. Right. Yeah. And they voted against this, you said. That's very strange. So basically, what the Democratic Socialists of America are trying to accomplish, if I may, what they seem to be trying to do here is guarantee that some of their people might actually get elected to office and might actually stay in office long enough to accomplish some of their goals, as opposed to automatically like sign a pledge that will be used against them in a primary or general election that will guarantee they never ever see the inside of the halls of power. Whew, fucking hell. All right. Now, there's more of it, but I don't care.